Well, it is the weekend, and by weekend, we also mean it's the time the movies come out. And it's also when Michael Snyder comes out to play with his Culture Blast. Michael, hello there.
Hey, Alex. We're live from Los Angeles, and it's a sad, sad week for those of us who love comedy and appreciate fine acting because, we lost Robin Williams, and we're soldiering through. But I know you and I have mutual friends, Robins, and it's been pretty difficult. And yet, he leaves a pretty good legacy.
Why has it been difficult?
Well, it's sad to lose someone of that kind of talent and exuberance. I just feel it's a terrible loss. But I know people make decisions, in their lives, and I can't argue with the guy who chooses to do this to himself, or who allows circumstances in his life.
I think it was a very selfish act.
You can say that if you want. I do know that the guy was wrestling with depression, and it's a real thing. And the onslaught of Parkinson's. This is a guy whose personal vitality has been his stock in trade for so long that maybe the fear of losing.
It's still selfish. You've got kids you leave behind. You have friends you leave behind. You have a lot of people who are in grief now as a result of what you did.
True.
How can you feel sorry for that kind of selfishness?
Well, I don't feel sorry for him at this point. I feel sorry for us at the loss. So there's some selfishness for you. I mean, he still had more to give as a dramatic actor, for sure. He could have definitely continued along those lines. And, again, when you lose the vitality due to something like Parkinson's, it is a tough one for a guy who's
but Michael, excuse me, what's his name? Michael J. Fox has been living with it for 20 years. He doesn't kill himself.
Different wiring. And, this guy's dealt with clinical depression for a long time. Look, you know what? All I can say is he'll be missed, and I feel bad for his family and his close friends, again, some of which we know personally. And it's been hard on them.
I feel sorry for his friends. I feel sorry for Rebecca Irwin, who had to discover the body.
Oh,
well, that wasn't a very nice thing to do to Becky.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one, no matter how you look at it. And you can take solace in the fact that
you have to understand, everybody's going around and going, we have to understand this and so on and so forth. And the thing that they don't understand is that suicide is a very selfish act, especially when you do it so your body gets found. It is almost a hostile act.
You can say that.
No, I can say, I'm not saying it. Psychiatrists have been saying it. People who deal with this kind of thing say that those people who are not being selfish about their suicide go off into the forest somewhere, disappear and kill themselves. They don't put themselves in a situation where somebody's going to see them dead.
Well, we can't really actually know what a dead person who's committed suicide's motivations were at the time, nor whether they had a chance
I'm not talking about their motivations. The reason why they committed suicide is quite different from the fact that when they committed suicide and then they left a body for someone else to find, they were committing a very selfish act and also an antisocial act.
If you are so overwhelmed with grief, sadness, and depression that you want to take your own life, I don't know that you're thinking beyond the immediate.
Don't excuse not caring about the other people you're leaving behind.
Well, I'm telling you now that it's a done deal. I wish it wasn't, but it is at this point. So castigating
I think you're dealing.
It's a waste of negative energy.
Well, I think you're dealing in a certain amount of what I call mock sympathy.
No, I just feel bad because I knew the guy too. There's no mock sympathy here. This is real sympathy for his family and friends, and I felt bad for him, and I think it's a loss. But the work will live on, and if people get a chance to seek out a movie like 1 Hour Photo... you're making it a bigger loss than it is. You're getting like a lot of these other people, the fact of the matter was most of his movies were mediocre. The fact is he was not a good stand-up comic, no matter what anybody says. The best acting job he did was convincing people he was a stand-up comic. Well, you can,
while I think that his work is good and their performances that he's done is great, to hold him up as like this genius and this pantheon of show business is absolutely absurd. There are many more people if they died tomorrow who would be far more missed than Robin Williams.
Well, you know what? We can't quantify that either, because the truth is that people loved him, and that's the bottom line. And I will agree with you that he had a mediocre film output, but the highs were very high and very good. And again, I want to point out a couple of things. I would recommend people seek out Moscow on the Hudson, The Fisher King, 1 Hour Photo, and maybe if you want to see him at his most manic, Good Morning Vietnam, which combined a little of that Robin Williams sort of, monkey mind with a dramatic performance in the context of Persona.
It's funny you don't mention a person who was a bigger star than Robin Williams.
We're going to get to Lauren Bacall.
Who died this week. And, the one thing about Robin, he was a very nice guy. He was a very decent, nice guy. Lauren Bacall was one of the biggest bitches in show business.
Well, that's not what I was going to say, but that's fair, too. No, I was going to get to Lauren Bacall. We lost Robin Williams, and then we, the zeitgeist, the people, lost Lauren Bacall, who's cool beauty and kind of feline sexuality was a source of great pleasure for this particular audience member, and her work with her husband Humphrey Bogart.
Her only crime here is that she died old. If she had died younger, then a younger generation would remember her, and that's why Robin Williams is getting all the news, and Lauren Bacall is getting a footnote. Nobody darkened the lights on Broadway for Lauren Bacall.
One guy committed suicide. One woman died of complications of old age. It's a different sort of tragedy in people's minds.
I feel sorry for the person that dies naturally rather than the one that commits suicide. The person who commits suicide has made a decision, and they went and did it. And I'm very happy for Robin. If it gave him some peace, then I'm happy for him.
Again, you said something very, very telling. He was a very nice man.
He was a very nice man. A bit on the selfish side, but that did not make him any less a nice guy.
He had the egomania of a guy who adored the spotlight. I was talking to our friend David Feldman, and he always reminded me, or actually this should be in reverse, when Martin Short comes out on Letterman and basks in the applause and throws his arms at his sides and goes, "Thanks for remembering." To me, that's like the essence of Robin Williams' hunger for the limelight. But I thought the guy was massively talented. Again, a mediocre filmography, except with some really terrific highs.
Very, very good actor. Did a great job acting like a comedian, made some people actually think he was funny, which I never found him funny. But the fact of the matter is that he does not deserve the amount of airtime. They're thinking of naming the Waldo Tunnel after Robin Williams. I mean, that's how manic this whole thing has gotten.
Come on, Waldo, what a stupid name that is. The Robin Tunnel. That sounds much nicer. By the way, comedy, the most subjective thing in the world. Okay, let's get to some of the movies this week. I'm sure you were waiting for this one. It's The Expendables 3, the third in the series of action comedies. I guess they're comedies. I was laughing. Featuring a lot of old duffers from Hollywood and parts east and west who are noted for their starring in action roles. And in some cases, not the world's greatest actors. The word actor doesn't even suffice in some of these cases. But this was a project by Sylvester Stallone, who brought together the likes of Jason Statham, Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren, Arnold Schwarzenegger made a few appearances in previous films. And this guy, is the leader of a group of black ops types that do the jobs no one else wants to do. They're old. They've been through it. They're expendable. I got to tell you, though, they're getting so old. This is The Expendables 3. If they do another film, as I said as I was leaving the screening, they should call it The Depensables. And I'm thinking, ha, ha, ha. And the guys next to me are laughing. And then I found out that Stallone himself has invoked the same somewhat joke. And so he's taking this thing in the manner in which it's delivered, which is, Z movie stuff with a lot of talented people. And frankly, Jason Statham has his own career. He's fairly young compared to Schwarzenegger and Stallone, and he's got his own franchises and what have you. And they bring in Antonio Banderas in this one. They try to get a younger generation as he fires the old guys because it's too dangerous to go after former expendable turned bad guy Mel Gibson. So, you got Kelsey Grammer. It's Hollywood's right wing having a little fun here at our expense. The young players are not all that impressive. Ronda Rousey, who's a UFC fighter, is kind of fun to watch. Harrison Ford, is he slumming? I don't know. He's starting to look like beef jerky up there. But I have to say that, he seemed to be having a good time. And you also have Wesley Snipes joining the gang here, and Randy Couture and the rest. But, I think it's pretty dim stuff on the whole. At best, a bargain matinee. And you got to like these guys, but the joke is getting weary. All right, how about a movie I really, really loved? I don't know whether you enjoyed The Trip, meaning the film and the TV series. It featured British comedians Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon, friends in real life, colleagues, as they took a little trip down around England's Lake District from restaurant to restaurant and spent the time. It was like my dinners with Steve and Rob, and I have to say I enjoyed it a lot. And there's plenty of food porn, which we've discussed a lot lately with movies like The 100-Foot Journey, and there is wit, there's impressions. There are these two guys who are trying to constantly one-up one another. And, much like in the first film, The Trip to Italy follows the same format and has the guys doing their dueling impressions. In this case, they're doing the mutterings of Batman and Bane from the movie The Dark Knight Rises, their impressions of, those guys, Christian Bale and Tom Hardy. Kind of droll, but there's a lot of personal matters on display here and a lot of delicious food and beautiful vistas. Italy, far lovelier, with all due respect, than England's Lake Country. The Trip to Italy, directed by Michael Winterbottom, wonderful stuff, and I'm sure watching each half hour that was eventually anthologized into this 2-hour film would be a lot of fun, too, particularly if you like these guys and then you enjoyed the first trip. The Giver was maybe the proto-young adult dystopian novel a number of years ago. It became like a regular on reading lists for junior high schoolers, I think. And it's a book that was written by an author named Lois Lowry, and it's about a future, a colorless future where everyone is peaceful, relatively emotionless, directed to their jobs, and the sex is not on the table. Procreation is very, very clinical. And in fact, no one really knows much about the past except for one person, the giver, who has to pass on the information about the time before this dystopian / utopian future. And in this case, Jeff Bridges plays the older guy, Brendan Thwaites, far older in his early 20s than the character in the book, who I think is supposed to be 12 or 13, but they've kind of young adulted it up with some cute girl, fellow youthful denizens of this kind of colorless world. Odeya Rush is the girl, and you've got supporting work from Alexander Skarsgård and Katie Holmes as the kid, Jonas's parents, or I guess adopted parents, since in this realm you're handed a child when they're very, very young and you raise the child. But I have to say, despite good direction by Philip Noyce and some nice choices made on a technical level, we've been here so frequently with things like Divergent and The Hunger Games, and yes, it's not as violent as either, but there's this Christian undertone. There are these, kind of leaps of faith you have to make. Maybe there's a neural net that connects everyone, maybe not. I don't know. The Giver to me seemed a little half-baked. I guess lovers of the book may have quibbles or may embrace it. I don't know. Philip Noyce, again, directs well, and obviously this was a passion project for Jeff Bridges, who tried to do it years ago. I think this won the Newbery Medal in the 90s, and I mean we're talking 10 million plus copies sold, so it's got a built-in audience. I was left a little cold. In terms of spotlighting films, I'm saddest this week about Life After Beth, which was supposed to be kind of a zombie and human romance as a girl dies on a hiking trip and her boyfriend is reunited with her when she comes back from the dead. I thought this is going to be funny. It stars Aubrey Plaza as Beth. You've got Dane DeHaan, who's been in the Spider-Man movies, as the boyfriend. You've got John C. Reilly, and unfortunately, of course, Molly Shannon playing his wife. Paul Reiser and Cheryl Hines. Anna Kendrick. I thought this is going to be hilarious. No, not funny. Aubrey Plaza just bored me throughout this thing as she swung from unbelieving, revived preacher to angry zombie. It's just not funny, really not funny. I have to tell you, love the performers, but and a great premise, but oddly cast too, as John C. Reilly and Molly Shannon play Jews. I mean, that alone required a great leap of faith. They're Jews, uneven script, maybe diverting on video for the fun of watching the undead Aubrey Plaza lurching around, but gosh, I just don't really think so. We'll wrap up quickly by me recommending Frank, a very strange, very unusual story inspired by a real performer, a performance artist and musician who performed with a giant kind of head mask on the whole time. You never saw his face, and he's passed away, and that guy's life inspired this really bizarre and kind of poignant movie about this guy who does the same exact thing and has a band, and an outsider is brought into the band, and he finds himself kind of totally overwhelmed by the situation. Michael Fassbender plays the guy with the big head on his shoulders. Michael Fassbender, you never see his face really. Maggie Gyllenhaal is his snarky band member, and Domhnall Gleeson is quite good as the newcomer. It's a very strange film, and it's not going to be to everyone's taste, but I thought Frank was cool. And finally, I know you hate the French. I think you really do. Jealousy harkens back to the French Nouvelle Vague, the new wave, black and white story of a husband, actor who leaves his wife and child and takes up with a fellow actress who is a major downer. Nice performances, beautifully shot. Paris in cold, wintry days, done in black and white. And I thought Philippe Garrel, who wrote and directed this, nailed it for this sort of thing. In terms of TV stuff,
so much realism that you can smell their body odor. Anyway, go ahead.
Thanks. Oh, don't forget the urine. Come on.
Yeah, the urine.
Actually, speaking of which, how are the subways in the summer? Anyway, I want to finally say, and I was getting into it, TV stuff, I'm loving The Honorable Woman. I really am. Speaking of Maggie Gyllenhaal, she's one of the stars of this thing along with Stephen Ray and a bunch of terrific British actors. And it's about a Jewish philanthropic woman who's also now in the House of Lords in England, and she's trying to develop a relationship.
Yeah, well, I've talked about all this, so people know this.
Palestinians and the Jews in Israel. She's trying to put together a business and raise things up to kind of balance the lives out there. I think it's wonderful. If you liked Homeland. This is not quite like that, but I thought that it's in that ballpark.
Well, I hated Homeland, so but I do like The Honorable Woman. It's very good.
Wonderful stuff, and I think Garfunkel and Oates is funny. I'm enjoying that on IFC.
Yeah.
Me personally. What are you watching?
Nothing.
All right.
Nothing. I mean, I'm watching The Honorable Woman, and I'm watching Tyrant on FX. I'm watching The Strain, which I think is amazing.
Manhattan,
which I like a lot,
but
I've mentioned these already, so I don't need to re-mention them. And out on Ovation now is the second season of A Doctor's Notebook with Daniel Radcliffe and John Hamm. And
one more note: The Nick has gotten good reviews. Haven't watched it yet. About a turn of the century.
It's a rip-off of a British show called Casualty 1906.
Interesting. Well, there's stuff out there. People enjoy it, and we'll be back next week. Check me out on Twitter at Culture Blaster and Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page on Facebook. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much, Michael. We look forward to it, and we'll see you again next week. I'm Alex Bennett. Stay where you are. For more wonderful programming from GabNet,